Yeah, so before we start, I have a little question for you guys. It's a very fun question. Practice, right? Today is 22, 10 to 2. It's a very nice date. Okay, so 2 more minutes to start. Yeah, so let's see these nice questions. Console.log. Okay, so these four things. Let me just increase this. So these four calculations. What do you think the answers will be? Right? This is 4 plus string 4. Is someone saying something?
The first one should be probably 8.
8. The second one.
First is 44.
Okay.
This is 44. Mine is a straight. The second one is 4 and 4. Third one should be the same thing.
Wait, the second one
The
is
second one and third one.
The second one is what?
4 and 4. I busy the third one. I shall know one of those two will give me that.
4 and 4. Like this? Okay, no, 9 is capital N.
Yeah, that's a number.
Okay.
Happy? Oh, I don't get confused. Me, I just wait.
Then this one. Then the
What will be the
last
difference without these three stuff?
one. I don't know, but the last one.
At least I'm very sure of the first one.
You are very sure of the first one. Okay. What about the last one? Wait, don't answer for this second one, this third and fourth one. So, answer. What would they be? Nobody's giving answer for the third and fourth one. See, it's already 8:50. Do sharp, so we'll start. Yes.
Oh, okay. I think the plus in front of number 3 of the first. That one will be 8. I think number 3 will be 8.
Okay, and number 4.
Because the plus in front of the string 4 will make it a number. Something like that.
Okay.
Number 4. Probably the same. I don't know.
Wait. Okay, that last one.
Yes.
That last one is 8.
It's 8. Okay, so we have 8, 4 and 4, 8, 8. Am I going with 8 or 44 here?
44.
44, 44.
You are joining the bandwagon.
Nobody
Okay, no problem.
Yes.
Okay, so oh right, Coca. Alright, so Coca is throwing an error for this one. So as you suspected, yes, something is wrong here, but you won't get none. Instead, you just get syntax error. Because once you do a plus, two pluses joined together, no space, it's going to treat whatever is before it as a variable. So it's saying assigning. I don't get it, but the point is, it's trying to look at 4 as a variable and add 1 to that. That's the value. But 4 is not a variable, so that's syntax error. So we can comment this one out. And for the others, yes, it is just as you expected. 44, 8.
Yes.
So this one, I don't think I need explanation. Because one of them is a string. It's just going to do concatenation. For this one, however, this plus 4 is like 1 times 4.
Why is the video late?
Why is what?
It's like your voice is
coming before
in
the
front
video.
of the video. Yes.
That's strange though. Since sound is faster than light. I mean light is faster than sound. Should have been the other way around.
It has been like that since, but we have been managing. But this one is too
okay. I don't know if it will change.
Continue, we hope.
Sorry. It's network that is doing me this one. Okay. So when you do this plus in front of a string, this is what you are telling it. Even if you do plus 4, like normal 4, 4 that is not a string, it's still the same. It's doing 1 times that thing. So it's really helpful for strings when working with numbers in strings, because as you know, when you do multiplication of a string and a number, JavaScript will force the string to become a number. Okay, so if the string has words and not numbers, then you'll get none. So for example, if we're getting 8, right? So if I said 4, we get none, because this multiplication, this 1 times 4 has turned it to none, and 4 plus whatever is not a number is not a number. Alright, so that's about that. I think I should leave this. So functions and loops. This is a big thing. Is this too small?
Yes, so it is small.
I mean, make mistake, go increase them twice. Okay, so let's just sharply look at this. So we know normal functions. Are we familiar with arrow functions? What functions?
No, we are not.
No. see who they answer me. Okay, so I think these 3. After these functions and loops, we'll do these 3, and then we'll jump to code words and really test what we've learned. Alright, so you can see the topics, function declaration, function with a parameter and return, returning value, 2 parameters, many parameters, unlimited, well, it's just small destructuring. Unlimited number of parameters, regular function, arrow function, anonymous function, expression function, self-invoking function. Right? Alright. So a function is a reusable code or block of code, programming statement designed to perform a certain task. The function is declared by a function keyword followed by a name followed by a parenthesis. So we have function, function name, and parenthesis. The parenthesis can take a parameter. If it takes a parameter, it will be called with arguments. A function can also take a default parameter to store a data to a function. A function has to return certain data types. To get the value, we call or invoke a function. So function makes code clean and easy to read, reusable, easy to test, lots of stuff like that. So it's almost impossible to actually write something, like let's say write a program. In fact, it's impossible to write a program without functions because it'll just be too weird and pointless, unnecessary. So functions can be declared or created in a couple of ways: declaration, expression, anonymous, and arrow function. So let's go through them. Declaration function is the one we are used to, where you say you have to use the function keyword. So you say function, what do we call our function? Let's do like those guys and call it my function. And then you put the brackets, and then you put this, and then you can write something. Console.log working. So you notice the white box. That means this is not running. When you write code, it doesn't run by when you write function declaration. If you declare a function with declaration like this, it's not running until you call it. So you say my function and put this, and then you see working. Alright, so you can have a bit of spaces in here, that's also fine. You can even bring it down. JavaScript is not too loose about stuff like that, so it's all up to how you choose to do it. So we've seen a function without a parameter, right? We just called my function and it's console logged something. So let's try a function. We'll try a function with a parameter, and then we'll now look at return statements. So here I said console log working, right? So let's see, we pass in a parameter, and in here we console log that parameter, right? So it's saying undefined because there is no parameter in here, so nothing. But if we put a parameter 1, we get something. If we put a string, we get something. Alright, so that's just how parameters, they're like basically creating a variable that can be used inside the function. So we can do things to it. Let's say we say param dot slice 0 minus 2. Maybe param is equal to this. So anything you pass in is going to slice off the last 2 characters and just drop what is remaining for you. So if we were to add, let me say ing, we get that. So it's basically just creating a variable that can be used in the function. Alright, so now return return statements. If we said return param, I think I should clear out this console log. Oh no, let me even leave it and do something different. Let me say param plus 1. Alright, so this console log is doing its own thing generally, but this string is returning something else. A return in a function is like, you see how this param is a variable. It can be defined as a variable that is local to this function, right? A function itself can also be looked at as a variable. So you know that if you say, let's string, right? String is a variable, and if you come down here and console log string, we get undefined, right? So in the same way, since functions can also be looked at as variables, then naturally the return statement is the value that is stored in that function. Let's call it that way. In a normal variable, if you want to give it a value, you say string is equal to this. You say string is equal to 8, and then the value of string is now 8. But for a function, the return statement is the value. So if you console log a function, what you are getting is the value. See, without a return statement, we get undefined, just like a regular variable. So return statements are the values of functions, the values that the function holds. So with that, now we can now do stuff like, maybe write a function inside a function to perform certain tasks or something like that, or use a function in another place. Maybe how do we put it? What kind of situation can I use now? Okay, maybe you have a bunch of data, all right, and in part of the data you have an array, and for your needs, you don't like that array to be as it is. Maybe you want to do some things to the items inside the array. You can write a function that modifies elements inside the array and returns the array with the modified elements. And then let me say, okay, even something like this, we have a list of, or we have a parameter. We don't like how the parameter is. We want to make sure that we remove two characters from the end of the string and add 1 to it. And so we do this. So somewhere later on, somebody can say my function string maybe dot to uppercase, right? See, this is possible. You are basically, just like I said, treating the function as a variable, as a string, because it is returning a string. If this thing was returning just 1, error, because it's looking at this function as a variable that holds number, so it's a number, and the uppercase does not work on numbers, so this is false. This doesn't work. So you treat a function like a variable, with depending on what the return statement is. If this was returning an array, then you can imagine that something like dot splice or those other normal array methods are going to work on it. Alright, So that's about return statements. Now, one more fun fact about return statements is that anywhere in your function that the function executes return, that's the end of that function. So you can't write anything below the function. It will just know. You see how it's grayed out? The moment I'm writing it, VS Code is graying it out because it's never going to run. The moment the code does return, that's the end of the code. So always keep that in mind. Alright. So let's look at a small example of using functions as variables. Let's say we have a function called square, and square takes a number as a variable, and what it does is return n raised to power 2, right? So that means we can do something like this: square 4 yes, plus square 3. So before I go do that, so you can see this is just like a variable plus, a number plus a number, and you can even do more things on that, like let's say maths dot square root. So this is Pythagoras, right? So that's one way we use functions. Write a function that does something to a number and like that. Okay. So in functions, they are like your playing field. You can do pretty much anything you want inside. You see this guy, he created new variables, added them together, console logged what he got from the addition, and that's that. The variables were created out of thin air and it just continued doing what he wanted it. Okay. Returning value, we've talked about return value. Function with a parameter, we can pass different kinds of things, and you just need to make sure that the things you are going to be putting into your function, you account for that. So if we say this now, this is square, right? So if I turn this to f, you're going to get another number because there's no f squared. It's not algebra. So keep in mind stuff like that. Alright, so let's look at a function with two parameters. So let's say I don't know if I mentioned. Okay, I definitely did not mention. Functions, just like variables, we use camel case. It's just the standard. Of course, you can choose to write capital letters all the way, but as long as that code, there is nobody that will check that code, and you don't have a superior that will check that code. If not, they'll vex for you. But anyway, it's good to work with best practice. So camel case. So let's say, no, param 1 is long. Let's say P1, P2. Alright, so these are our two parameters. Whenever you have multiple parameters going into a function, you just give them variable. These are just variable names. You give them variable names separated by comma, right? And then inside you can do what you want. Sorry, maybe return P1 times P2, right? Something like that. That's two parameters. So console.log two params 5 8, right? We have 40. So that's just that. Of course, we could do much more things. Maybe square P1. Okay, let's try that. Maybe let P be equal to P1 squared divided by 4. So return P times P2. Random stuff, you can do whatever you want. The point is, the return is what holds the final value of that function. And that's this 50. Okay, so function with many parameters, as long as you know the number of parameters, you can just keep on writing. It can be 10, it can be 20. As long as you get strength to write them, you feed the right to code. Just separate them with commas and give them unique variable names. You are good to go. You can do anything inside. So we'll leave this because it's basically the same thing with the double parameters, just that there are more things. So now, function with unlimited number of parameters. There are times like this where you don't know how many arguments the user is going to pass. You know that you need this function, but you are not really sure what exactly is going to go into the function, because sometimes when you call functions, before I say that, now we see that 2 params 5 8 gives us a value, right? In here we can actually say, okay, this 4. Inside here we're going to now say 2 params and maybe 2 5. Well, let's carry on with the 5 8 since that one was not 5 8. So do you see, inside square is a function, and the value that we are putting in is another function. And you can imagine that we don't know what the value is. Imagine this one was returning maybe a list of things, random stuff. So anyhow, at times you might not be sure exactly what is entering, the number of things entering as the parameters to your function. So if you have a situation like that, many params, yes, it's weird saying this because we've not officially treated it, but there is this thing called spreading. Now look at this. Let array be equal to, 1 2 3 4 5, right? So console.log array, and this is what you see, right? You see the square brackets and then things separated by commas. But now if you added 3 dots in front of that R, this is what we get. I know they just look like, separate things, but actually these are all separated by commas. If you use this somewhere in your work where it will not throw an error, this is actually 1 comma 2 comma. All it does is just remove the opening and closing brackets. That's what this does. So you can imagine that even if there is 6 7 8, it no matter, everything inside is just going to be separated by commas and will not have square brackets. And for things just separated by commas and without brackets, let's make this one. You see, it doesn't matter whether it's string or boolean. Here, it's just going to be separated with commas. That looks like, parameters that we pass into functions, right? So that means if you are not sure how many arguments are entering your function, you just do ... and call one thing. Maybe you can say arr. Since I've described a variable named this, let me call it something else. Let me call it array, right? And now in your work, you just treat it as an array. Console log array. So let's call this function. Many params. See, nothing. It's just an empty array because we passed in nothing. But let's say we write 5, 9, 4. You see, it just keeps showing up. So that's how it works. So with your knowledge of array methods, all you need to know is that when you do this array inside your function is now an array. So now you know how you want to do your array. Do you want to maybe add the first thing to the second thing to the third thing to the fourth thing to the everything? That's up to you. But the point is, that is how you pass unlimited parameters into your function. And just keep in mind that when you do ... something, that something is an array inside your function. That's it. So with that, you can get your values. Alright, so they did the same thing, passed in stuff, and we can see 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. This one uses a loop. We've not really touched loops yet. Okay, so remember they said, where was that? So they said there are declaration function, expression function, anonymous, and arrow. So we've seen, or so far we've been using, what's it called? Declaration function. Let's look at expression functions and then arrow functions. So expression functions are anonymous functions. Okay, this is an anonymous function. Anonymous functions don't have names. It's just like this. So let's try it out. Ow. Basically, this is an anonymous function. Yeah, like this. But the reason why it's not allowed is that, remember, functions don't run until you call them, right? And how do you call a function? You call a function with its name, and then you put the brackets. So you call square and you put the bracket, and the function now runs. But anonymous functions don't have names. So if you finish writing this function, how are you going to call it? It's impossible. It won't run until you call it. It doesn't have a name for you to use to call it. So on its own, it's a no-no. JavaScript is going to reject it. So that's where we now turn it into an expression function. So an expression function, you assign it to a variable, like let's say const expression is equal to this, and now all is right with the world. Let's say return 7, right? So console.log expression and this. Right? So let's try something. Let's say 6 is in here. DT. Okay. Return DT. Okay, so you see that it's basically the same. It's just that instead of saying function expression and then the brackets and then this, we now remove this one and put it in front and assign it to a variable, that kind of thing, right? That's the only difference. You can still pass in stuff. You can pass in two things, td. Let's say 6 7 and we say dt plus td 13. It's all the same. So expression function is just you calling a variable and making the value of the variable an anonymous function, right? No difference. So now, based on this, people now decided to come up with a newer stuff. I mean, if you can also create a function like this, then what's the point of this function now? Let's find a way to remove the function. And so they decided to come up with arrow functions. So you can use const or let, whichever one you want, sure. But people like to use const for functions because, I mean, you don't expect to change the value of that function, right? It's a usable block of code. You've written it. As long as it's working, you just keep on using it like that in your code. You won't say, square has been working like this so far. Or, where is that square? Square has been working like this so far. Maybe 200 lines below that, you say, I don't like square. I don't want it to be like this again. Let me change the value of square. No, you will most likely write a new function to do some new stuff for you. So people like to use const for that reason. So const arrow, let me keep this in view, is equal to brackets and then will I say put some kind of special notation in so that this won't just look weird. They now put an arrow, right? And then this, and then this. So this is arrow function. This is the basic form of arrow function, and then you call it later on. It's return 1. Yeah. So see expression function, see arrow function. Pretty similar. The only difference is here you must put function because it's like a function declaration, but the function doesn't have a name. Here, function, in fact, is, see what's going on here, error. So here the function is not just that you can skip it, is that, or like it's not necessary, is that it's a mistake. It's not supposed to be there. So just the brackets, right? Then you have to put this arrow and then it's business as usual. You can pass in values here. Let's go with TD and his brother, and let me say we return an array with TD and DT. Okay. So we pass in 4 and 7. That's it. So it's basically business as usual. Now, for arrow functions, since things are getting better and people are improving with it, they decided to add a few more things. One, if you are passing in only one variable, right? You're only passing in DT, then you don't need the brackets because you are writing only one thing. You don't need the brackets. That's one thing. That's one change they made. Of course, if you're writing two things, you must put the bracket. So you can't say this arrow. You can see the red line of it, arrow. So you must wrap it in brackets. That's fine. Now the second thing, you see this function has only one line. This one only one line, right? Why should it now take up 3 lines when this is all it's doing? No, we want efficiency, and so they decided that if you have an arrow function, not expression functions, not anonymous functions or function declaration, you have an arrow function that has only one line and is returning something. It's not the one where you are doing console log inside. It's the one where it's returning something and it's just one line. They now said you can remove the brackets, the curly brackets, and remove the return statement itself. So anything you put after this arrow, it will be automatically returned. If I say TD, of course you can do calculations in here, TD plus 4, we get an answer. We can wrap this up, turn it to string. What do we do to it now? Let's say pad end. I want 2 extra zeros. Oh no, I want it to be 4 digits. If it's not 4 digits, then add zeros. Lots of things. The point is, it's a one-liner. So this is where that whole concept of one-liners that Simple Soul is always crying about, this is where it came from. Arrow functions, they are the source of one-liners, as long as you know what you're doing, sir. But there are some one-liners that are just crazy. You just keep on writing dot this, dot that, and it will fill 2 lines, but it's a one-liner. Okay, so that's about arrow functions. Most of these things would make more sense when we do live examples on CodeWars, because that's where you see I really wanted to treat functions before we went to CodeWars, because CodeWars is all about functions. They give you a problem and they tell you write a function that will do this. You've seen some of the crazy things that we've been seeing on the group chat now. Maybe they're telling you that they'll be giving you north, east, south, west, and write a function that will I say shorten that into the shortest possible form of it. weird stuff that we see on that place. It's all functions. They're all telling you to write functions. So it's up to you whether you want to write arrow function or expression function or function declaration. Anyhow, let's look at the last type of function, self-invoking function. So it's different in the sense that you don't need to call it to get the value. As you are writing it, is calculating the value and returning it a value there. Okay. So self-invoking functions are anonymous functions which do not need to be called to return a value. So remember anonymous functions, we said function n, you just write it like that without giving it a name. All right. So basically, to turn an anonymous function into a self-invoking function, you first of all put brackets around the function, and then put another set of brackets. This other set of brackets is like, this normal brackets that you put like this. So if your function takes in a value, then you will put the value in here. If it doesn't take in a value, you just have empty brackets here. Okay. So let's try that out. What do we do in our own now? So no name. Remember, we go function brackets this, and then we write something in there like, let's use console log. That one is easy to see. Console log working. Okay, so it's throwing us an error and saying unexpected token, because anonymous functions should not just exist on their own. So we wrap it in brackets. We're still getting an error, and then we add another set of brackets. This thing is just out to antagonize me. It's going to call everything a mistake. See? Do I need to do this? Craziness. Let's see. Let's results be equal to this. Okay, I see. So do we get why it was still vexing for us before? You know why it's still vexing? Because it's basically a similar problem to a normal anonymous function. Yes, we're getting a return value, but nothing. Like it's not assigned to a variable. It's like you just come down here and write 4. Let's assume this one is okay. I don't know, something like that, sure. So let's say string be equal to, have I okay, I think okay, there was a string before. Alright, so let's strong be equal to this, and we can console.log strong as 1. Okay, so that's self-invoking functions. I know they are weird. I personally have not come across a situation where I felt the need to use a self-invoking function, but knowledge is power, right? It's better to know it than to not know it. So that's that. And with this we come to the end of functions, and okay, so now they're doing their own arrow function. Yeah, so that's all that. So now we'll go into loops very quickly, so that we don't spend all day on this. So loops, we have for loop, while loop, do while, for off. Okay, so we're also going to do for in. Yeah, so there's break and continue. These are not loops, but these are things you can use in loops to really give you a bit of extra functionality. They are very helpful. They are truly helpful sometimes. So let me copy these. Right, these are the ones I need. Let's add for in loop. Alright, so for loop. Now for loop is, you say for, just like function, we write function at the beginning. Yeah, for, this has to be there. So now you describe a variable that will like keep count of the loop, something like that. So normally people like to use I. You can be weird and use X or Z if you want. Nobody is stopping you. You can even say let count be equal to whatever. Should I say 0? Let's say 0. Okay. But count is long, it's strange, it's weird. So I, because I is wonderful. So I maybe less than 5, or let's say 6. And then, so this one is function, variable declaration, like initialization. You initialize a variable I, you state the ending condition for the loop, right? So as long as I is not less than as long as I satisfies this expression, as long as this is true, I is 0, I is less than 0 is less than 6, that's true. If I was 1 is less than 6, that's true. If the loop is going to keep running. So now we have to describe how should the loop move. Of course we are familiar with this, right? And then, so we all know what plus plus is now. We did it up here. It just adds 1 to a variable. That's plus plus. So let's say console.log I. So I is 0 at the beginning. It will check this. Does this satisfy this expression? 0 less than 6. That is true. So it's going to console log 0, and then it will do this, and I will now become 1. Does 1 satisfy this expression? True. Console log it. Do like that until to get to 5. 5 is less than 6. True. Console log I plus plus. I is now 6. let's sorry, I is now 6, it comes to check. Let's say 6 is less than 6, that's false, and it's going to stop. So to show you this, let's say we do the let I outside. Okay, of course you can use values from outside and do your for loop. So in that case, you wouldn't really need, the thing is you have to give it a value, I think. Can you just say I? Okay, that still works. As long as it has a value, you can just put it here. But this one you have to clearly state this one out. But now let's see something. Console.log I, and what do you see? 6. So this is why people usually don't use values from outside for loops, to run for loops, because it's going to change the value inside that variable. So we usually just create a new variable for the for loop and forget about the variable after that. But in case you do want that value as changed as it is, that's fine. What you have to do is initialize it outside, use it for your for loop, and once the loop is done, you will get a new value out here. Yes, so we talked about the fact that it's common to use I++, right? But not be by force. You can change it to 2. I plus equals 2. This one now, that just means keep on adding 2. Let's change this to 11. Okay, so we'll just keep on getting this. We said 3. So it's not by force that it's I++. In fact, you can even make this minus, but it's just that this is not going to run because it should just run once and then stop, because I less than 11, that's fine, but the moment it does this, oh right, it's not going to stop. I forgot, it's not going to stop because it's forever less than 11. So let's say I greater than minus 11. So backwards, right? We could say I is 10 and this is greater than 0, right? Maybe we turn this to 1. So I is 10. For I greater than 0, do this. Once you do, you subtract 1 from I. So this is just I minus, right? Yeah. So you can twist things around. You just need to keep in mind that this is the function. This is the variable, right? This is the condition that must pass before this code will run, and then this is the function or calculation that describes how the variable should change after a successful loop, after a successful iteration. One cycle in the loop is called an iteration. So that's for loop. As you can just play around with things as you want, but keep in mind that if you write it in such a way that there is no end, like you saw what happened before, where I said I don't this is minus, Abby. We say something like this is greater than I less than 10. No, 10. You see this, it's just going to keep running. it's not giving us an answer because it has not really I less than 10. Okay, because the first thing didn't even meet the, let me say I less than 11. Yeah, now it's going to keep running forever because less than 10, I mean 10, 11. Let me just stop this right now, but you get my point, right? It's going to just keep going until infinity. It's never going to meet an end. So it's going to just task your system and cause you problems. If you using loops, you have to be careful because it's like a silent blade. You are destroying your system and you don't know that you are doing it. Like you can go for days and this thing will be running, you will not know. I did hear that in React they put a stop, like they put a maximum number of calls. So if a loop gets to that number, it will automatically stop. Unlike regular JavaScript that it will continue forever, for days if possible. Alright, so that's for loop. So let's look at while loop. Now let me write this properly. So this was minus for 10. I want it to be greater than 0, right? And it's 10. Okay, it's going to resolve itself once I'm done with this. So that's while. So now we're going to do while. Now I is 0, right? That's perfect. So we're going to do while to count. We're going to use while to count up to 10. So with while loop, you say while, you just put the ending condition. So while I is less than 10, what's the word? Is that less than? No, that's greater than. While I is less than 10, console.log I, and then down here you put the condition for change, I plus plus. Okay, so the thing with while is that unlike for loop that you have to describe the variable inside a loop, something like this, and with while loop you must describe it outside. It has to be an external variable. It can't be described inside. So externally, a variable already exists, then you now say maybe something about the variable. It's the thing with while is that while is really versatile. So it must not be a variable like this. It can be that you put a function here that will keep calling itself. So you say maybe while this function is true, or let me say while the function is false, keep running. Where do I find an example of this now that I've done? What is my plenty code that is somewhere? I can't really pinpoint one place and say this is where it is. Let me look for while. I don't want this one. Nope. I like this one. Yes. So you see this one. This one is not the regular type of this one is not the regular, maybe this is less than this or something like that. This one is saying while number modulus f is a factor, f is a factor like 2 or 3 or something like that. So while any number modulus f is 0, do this. So it's going to do and try again, do and try again, do and try again, like that. That's how while works, until we finally get a number that is not 0, then it will stop. Okay, so you see, that's how while is more versatile than for loop. Okay, so for while, describe, initialize your variable outside, write the condition of stopping for the loop, write what should happen, and then the condition of change for the variable or something. Okay, in the other one now there was no condition of change because we're not using a variable. Instead, what I did is this. The thing is, something has to change. As long as it is 0, the number will change. So when it's trying again, it's not doing exactly the same thing. This num has now changed to become something less. So it's different. The thing is, you have to set your functions, your loops, in such a way that there is actually an end, or else error. Okay, so that's while. Now let's look at do while. So let's console log I again, and you see that I is 10, right? Okay, so do while. Do while is kind of like a while loop. It's just that it's a little different. Console.log I, let me say I++, and then it's now here that you will put the while. Okay, so I is 10 here. We say do this while I is less than 20. So it goes 10, 11, 12, like that. So sure, it looks the same as this, but here's the difference. Here I is 0, and we said while I is less than 10, do this. So imagine I said while I is less than 0, do this, but 0 is not less than 0. Like, this condition is false right from the onset, so nothing will happen. You see the white box? That means this code did not run. It just got here and stopped. So I is still 0, right? This one is saying do this while I is less than 20, so we have 0 to 19. Now what if I do the same thing while I is less than 0? Do this while I is less than 0. You see, maybe this one is not very clear. Let me put something bigger, something clearer. So do this while I is less than -5. You can normally tell 0 is not less than -5, like that. It's not even close to being less than -5, but it still console log 0. It's the difference between do while and while is that do while is going to do this first of all, first things first, before checking this condition. So it must do this. Then if this one doesn't meet up with expectations, it will stop. If it does, it will continue running until it meets a stop. So while you wanted to check condition and do well and continue doing until it meets the end. This one you want it to do at least once, no matter what, and then carry on as normal. So that's the difference between do while and while. Okay, so that is that. Let's change this one back to 10. See, this one is still going to drop answer. Alright, so for off. 4 off. Let's say we have an array. Keep in this. What do we put in this array now? Okay, let's call this countries. Right? And let's see, we've got Nigeria. Someone should suggest countries, please. I'm forgetting all the countries. Nobody's suggesting countries. People want me to forehand. Eh? Is that what people want? Alright, so we have countries. Now, we don't like as these things have one letter capital. We don't like it at all. We want everything to be small letters. Okay? So, what do we do? Yes. So, we create a new variable called R2, and it's an empty array, and we want to turn all of these to lowercase and put them inside here, right? So we decide that we're going to use, because we've seen for loops, we've seen while loops, we've seen do while, they are all common. We want to be different, so we say we're going to use for off, and this is how it goes. You describe a variable, so you can call it whatever you want. Let's call it country. Of countries, like that. So this can be anything. It can be item, it can be Z, just whatever you name variables. You can name it whatever, but the thing is, well, normal now, it's good to use something with meaning to you. So we say, sorry. So we say country, right? Because this makes sense. So there's no index here. You know, if it was normal for loop. Okay, let's do this with a for loop first of all. So we say let I equals 0, colon, not, I mean semicolon, not comma. I less than countries dot length I plus plus. Okay, so who knows what I should write in here to achieve what we want? Console.log R2. What's this thing's problem? So I want all of these to be lowercase, so you should turn it to lowercase and push it inside here. So what should I do?
Hello? Hello?
Yeah, I'm waiting for your answer.
I was thinking, I don't know for sure. Something like countries, square bracket, I dot to lowercase bracket. Don't know.
Countries I dot to lowercase. Okay, but I don't see it entering.
Okay, inside. Oh,
so
do R2 is equals to plus equals
R2 plus equals this. Wow. 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 Okay. So, alright, corrections.
Someone should help me out now.
Creed, Abdul Samad, how far now?
And let me think.
Yes. We want to put them into R2. What should we do?
Do you write square brackets on the array?
How do I write that?
Like in front of R2 square bracket.
So I should write square brackets.
Error.
Let me say something.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, at the back of the uppercase. Is that lowercase?
Yeah, lowercase.
Behind it.
Yeah.
Try to
what?
space plus sign, the plus sign.
Okay, plus.
No, after space, I mean make space.
Sorry, space and then plus.
Then space again.
Yeah.
Use your, what do they call it? Your quotation.
Okay, like this.
Yeah.
But it's not inside the array. I'm saying I want. You see, just like how there's Nigeria, Cameroon, Ghana, Togo, Benin. I want it like that inside here. But
Array to dot push.
array to dot push.
The plus sign.
What should I do to the plus
Remove
sign?
the plus. Remove the plus equal. Put everything inside there.
Okay.
Yay, God.
I'm seeing space. I don't understand where it's coming.
Hey, remove that space at the back.
Alright. So array dot push, and that's that. Okay, so this was it with the for loop. Now, if we wanted to do a for off, it's just country. Okay. Let's country of countries, and then in here we simply say country dot to lowercase, right? This feels easier. No writing of I or something. So this for off is useful for when you don't need the index in what you are doing in your for loop. Yeah, so a situation like this you don't need index. But imagine you were doing something like, I don't know, there are some situations where you will need the index for something, one thing or the other. In that case you just have to use a normal for loop. But something like this, what you just need is the country, right? So for off is easier to use. Alright, so that's for off. Now for in is usually used on objects. So let's obj be, let's go find an object. They didn't put object though. Hey, where I want to see objects. Hey, these people won't cause me trouble.
Maybe go to the day 2 or the 1.
I'll write objects. They won't kill me. So name, what do we put here? U class well defined. Alright, there will comma. What else did they put? status. Mechanic. Yeah, all right, let's just do a simple for in loop. Now objects are, they are not iterable. You see, loops can run on strings or arrays. Okay, let me leave this one and do it here instead. So let's strong be equal to what's right. Now for, let's put the let's car of strong. So what do we do to each of these things now that will make sense? Okay. Alright, I think I know what to do. Let's call this strang is equal to empty string. Alright, so we're going to console dot log strang. Right, it's an empty string. Okay, so for this now we're going to say strang plus equals car codes. What's that stuff again? So okay, we'll just use the car code. Car dots, yes. So you know this car code that it just returns the ASCII code of whatever character is in that position in the string. So we're saying for each character in the string, return the character, like the character code of T now is small letter T is 116, right? If I change this to capital T, it should change to something else. T. You see the, let me see. After the 116 was 11, right? So we still see the 11. So now it has changed to 84. Yeah. So for everything in here, find the character code and add it to strang, and that's this. Alright, so that is that. So strings and arrays are iterable. We can also use a normal for loop and do this. It's now be strong index I dot car code that kind of thing. But you can't do that for objects. So we use for in. It's similar for, let me say, key in obj console.log key. You see name, class, status. You can say obj dots, okay, because dots is more obj brackets key. See GUI, well-defined mechanic. Oh, GUI is a well-defined mechanic. All right. So that's how that's this. So it's also important to note you can use for in loop on strings and arrays as well, just with a different result. You see, the for of loop looks at the item itself. Let's say there are 5 things in an array. It looks at the first item, the second item, the third, fourth, fifth, right? The item, not the index. So whatever you put here, this car or country, is looking at the actual item itself. Nigeria, Cameroon, T, U, W, that kind of thing. But if you use for in loop on them, this variable here will not hold the value of each item. Rather, it will hold the index of those items. So let's try it out. For let's index in countries. Console.log index 0 1 2 3 4 5. If you think it's because I wrote index, well, let's change it to country. 0 1 2 3 4 5. So when you use for in on arrays or strings, this now holds the index. So in a way, you can use this as a replacement for loops. If you feel that writing let I is this, so you can just cuckoo say I let I in countries, and then you now say maybe oh, this was I. Yes. But let's I in countries, console log countries I, and you have this, right? So that's the difference between for of and for in for arrays. But in any case, for objects, it's only in that works on them. Alright, so that is functions and loops. We are done. Any questions? Of course, I would advise you to go and try this out yourself. Just looking at me doing it only tells you that such a thing can be done. It will only become a part of you if you try it out yourself. If you have a reason to use it and you successfully use it, you'll find it harder to forget it. Especially if you struggle with it before you succeed. Yeah. So, what up? Any questions?
Nope.
No. Alright, so we end here then.